A ceramic artist and researcher, Hyang Jin Cho has been developing her practice, knowledge, and understanding of the arts in academia since 1991. She's looking forward to the time, space, community, and support that the McKnight Artist Residency Program will provide for her research, but also looking beyond such immediate benefits to the opportunity to develop both her structures that examine cultural diversity within the United States. Prior to joining us at the center, Cho completed residencies at the European Ceramic Work and Smokestack Pottery. She received her BA in Archaeology and Art History in 1991 and her MA in Art History in 1995 from Seoul National University. Continuing beyond her studies as a postgraduate foreign research student and PhD candidate within the Department of Art History at the University of Tokyo, Cho turned her academic focus to a more tactile experience as an undergraduate student at Colorado State University in Fort Collins. Over the course of her career, Cho has exhibited work, completed projects and residencies, and published in Korea, Japan, Germany, and the Netherlands, and the United States as well. Here to share more with us about her journey as a maker, process, and some of her recent work, I turn your attention to tonight's presenter, Jin Cho.
Thank you, Kyle. Okay, first of all, I would like to start by expressing my gratitude to the McKnight Foundation and Northern Clay Center for the opportunity. I'm very, very grateful because this residency is a huge encouragement for me, especially after the long period of staying at home situation. So I'd like to share screen. Okay, first. Okay, my full name is Hyang Jin Cho, but please call me Jin. I was born and raised in Korea, studied art history, and went to Japan for a doctorate program in 1994. And almost 18 years later, I encountered with clay. Okay, next. Although I chose to be a full-time mother when my son turned 14, I thought it was the right time for me to re-educate myself and find a job. So my husband and I agreed that the second bachelor program for accounting might be the best option for me at the time. So waiting for the class began in fall 2012 at CSU, the Colorado State University. I wanted to try something I have never experienced before. So I registered a beginner wheel throwing class. There are painting and drawing classes, but they were all closed or full, so I had no option except pottery. So pottery was the last favorite in the Mormon classes. That's how my relationship with clay started. The first few weeks were disastrous, disappointing. It was so frustrating because every cylinder was off-centered. But the frustration was not the negative one. Actually, it activated something special in me. It appealed directly to my hand, my body, and my mind. So I went to studio almost every day, looked for images online, researched forms and surface designs, and made pottery as many as possible. And a few months later, I realized I wanted to be a production potter, not an accountant. At CSU, I was super lucky to meet my teachers, Sanam Emami and Del Haro. They taught me everything, the knowledge and skills I needed, encouraged me to push myself and explore new territories. and eventually supported me to continue pottery, continue making ceramics for my life. Next. It is a iguana making for a animal project in the Pottery 1 class in 2012. Making iguana was an eye-opening moment, eye-opening event for me to understand clay itself, the materiality and its possibility and limit, and how far I can go. Since then, I explored and enjoyed making dinner sets, teapots, figures, mold making, site-specific objects, organic shapes, expressive figures, and various surface design for plates, and so on. In 2014, I created an installation made up with wall-hanging flower pots. The form actually is inspired by the Chinese jade disc that symbolized the heavenly mandate for the rulers, ancient rulers, kings, and emperors. So I try to transform this public official ceremonial object to a functional and decorative vessel for flowers. I utilized a laser cutter for surface design. And thankfully, it had opportunity to be shown in Lincoln, Nebraska and Dresden, Germany. I really enjoyed every moment until this accident. In the ferry sank with 304 lives, including 250 high school students on a field trip. It has deeply traumatized Korean people because they witnessed in front of their eyes how unethical, corrupted leadership destroyed the entire system and also the innocent life. The passengers were not told to move when the captain and crew members escaped, abandoned the ship. The government failed to respond properly. Since then, my works dramatically changed, driven by grief and anger. I was unable to digest the tragedy, and immediately I made incense burners that were used for ancient funerary rituals. After these, while taking a break from clay because of my hand injury and pain of fingers, I spent most time making drawings about death, sorrow, and trauma. And in drawings, vessels are focal point as the symbol of memory, a commemoration of the victims. After the contemplation of this accident, I made an installation for my BFA show. I searched for answers to heal the wounds of the tragedy. This installation aims to bridge the disparity between life and death, reality and ideas, and that moment and eternity. So vessels are associated with funerary ritual, funerary process, and layers of hanging reference lattice entryways or lattice doors to innermost space. Those two vessel and layers connect two extreme opposites and allow them to communicate each other visually. The same year I made this installation, Inevitable Coincidence, it is also for solace victims and grieving families of the ferry disaster. There are two groups of vessels. Jars are influenced by ongi jar, ongi pots as a metaphor of this lively, vivid world. And the oval vessels imply funerary boats that carry souls to the other world. They represent my prayer for the souls and their protected afterlife. At the end of this passageway, there's a space between two groups of vessels. It's like a passageway. At the end of this passageway, there is a sitting figure with very painful and disturbing skin condition. This figure meditates how to address the absurd reality and tragedy and the flaws of human actions. In archaeology of pottery, also in this installation, I introduced tripods as the warning sign to the political leaders who responded to the ferry disaster inappropriately, incompetently, with lies. Although we as a human being built the splendid civilization from dirt and stone, we need to realize and accept that everything in the universe declines and turns to nothing in the end. So no flower can bloom for 100 days. We need to know that. For example, this tripod is the symbol of grandeur of dynasty, eventually witnessed the miserable collapse of the nation when the system failed with moral corruption. And in this installation in 2016, I also tried to visualize how to fix unhealthy society, unhealthy system, because our children have suffered for a long time under this circumstance, and realize that my generation in like a 50s and 40s, 50s, my generation is responsible for creating this absurd, distorted, greedy society. So like this vessel is a mirror of our current society, they become bizarre, non-functional, and broken, and eventually thrown away because of this situation. So accepting the responsibility of my responsibility, I try to propose to young generation and said, work together to solve problems. With this installation, I finalized my 2-year period of mourning, grieving process. And at the end of 2016, after the election, I was pretty shocked by this red image and the arrogance of people with political power. I thought, no matter how confident we are, human beings are so insignificant in the universe. According to scientific theory, the dark matter and dark energy make up 95% of our universe. So we know only 5%, although some people are trumpeting as if they know everything and control everything. After researching the humble origin of human being, I was intrigued by the embryonic development, the hollow shell, the hollow spear shape, and a sinkhole. So inspired by this shape of the early stage of embryo and the Korean ancient ornaments, I made 6 orbs. They have void curvy diffraction, which suggests a human fetus. With pillars together, I hope they represent 6 continents on Earth. In 2017, the overflowing remarks of sexism and racism also motivated and scared me. So I created female portraits. This not alone installation, I intended to celebrate women's effort to break gender barriers and social barriers. They are modern and contemporary women who made a contribution for social justice and equality. And to translate the womanhood, maybe we can say brotherhood. I don't know, we have a word womanhood, but to translate that womanhood, I adopted mylar paper, fabric, and crochet instead of traditional framed canvas. I also emphasized a horizontal composition to enhance the visual monumentality of their achievements. These vessels are, as you see in the full images, these vessels are connected to portraits and also connected to each other by reddish thread, and imply the endless collaboration and effort to overcome their hardship. At that time, I have explored the inclusions in ceramics as a social metaphor and added to the surface design for a expression of feeling, also the expression of the geological changes. In 2017, I also started testing non-clay materials such as thread and fabric, and make in a non-conventional building technique. I failed very badly, but I liked the process and the remnant of that failure. So I hope I have more chances to test like this in the future. In 2018, it seemed my process was influenced by my personal anxiety about aging and emotional reaction to it. I developed foams based on the embryonic shape. They are associated with the fragility of my body, nerves, organs, and cells, even skins. It is difficult to see the surface of the fabric, but some of them have tears a lot on the surface. The ceramic vessels also filled with the broken shard. As you see the previous slide from the failure, I collected them and fill the vessel with that shard. This shard also suggests pretty visceral feeling about changing body and aging, the menopause, and so on. This installation tangled order can be interpreted in the context of in the internal organs and nerves and cells. And so this is pretty the context of that, my personal experience and feeling about body. They look pretty chaotic, but in there, they work, each coils and each units work together and work very well in a marvelous order. That's why I can speak, I can think, I can walk. So I was amazed by that mysterious working mechanism, the relationship among individual units and the shells. So I was kind of focused on how they relate together one by one instead of making as a whole. So after this, I was developing structures linked with the coils. The coils, as just one coil, it individually pretty vulnerable. Easily, they can be broken easily with just one fingers, but together they can interconnected, interdependent, hold each other, and stand there and hold other shapes and create different and expand to a different realm of world. So I was so impressed by the power of just one coil and then the connected coils. In 2019, at the European Ceramic Works Center residency, I really delved into that, those structures that looks fragile, pretty delicate, intricate, but durable. I interpreted this three-dimensional, I like to say three-dimensional space filling structure is quite long, complicated, but this structure, I thought this structure is a metaphor of human society, the relationship and system. Because the ECABC, they are saying ECABC, European Ceramic Works Center, has the state-of-the-art facility. I was able to push myself further to a large scale. So they prepared the large size shelves for the entire piece. And I sitting on the slab to prevent cracks and to control the homogeneous moisture content in clay. For several weeks while making, I really stayed underneath these plastic sheets. It looks like a surgery. It is pretty challenging to cover the most part of the piece while working on a partial area, because I had to rely on my memory and the assumption how to proceed. I wasn't able to see other parts, so always I have to fix the height and add more and more. So it took 5 weeks every day without breaking from 9 to 10 in night. And I used almost 200 pounds of clay, 4,000 coils to finish this work. If I had more time, probably I kind of add more layers on the top of this piece. It is the moment after the bisque firing, which was lifted by just rubber bands. I was surprised by the flexibility and the strength of rubber bands. It holds, and although I was so scared, but it stayed there for days like this. So I was amazed. Each coil represents a vulnerable individual human being, I think. It looks pretty fragile, flawed, and random, but it connects to each other, hold each other, and depend each other. So with this seemingly imperfect relationships, interconnectedness, I don't know if it is the right word, the interconnectedness, this connected coils survive together as a whole and create a durable system as if our own society. As an immigrant to the United States, I have been pretty sensitive to the meaning of cultural diversity and the boundary of tolerance and the history of assimilation. So I made this painting in 2017, and it was the inspiration of my further research about this cultural issue. So I when I proposed apply for the Northern Clay Center, I proposed to create US map with interblocking forms, and then each forms decorated with diverse cultural elements like Islamic patterns and colors in Asian motifs, Christian symbols. I still love that idea, and probably I will make something like this someday. But to 2020, because of the pandemic, my residency was rescheduled. I literally stayed at home more than a year. So I had limited access to kiln and studio, just made a few pieces. This building a shelter piece is another inspiration or another kind of maquette to create this Northern Clay Center project. So I explored the tension between the geometric cubes and organic curvy circles, how they balance together as well as how they compete together. Maybe multiple pieces like this to create American map or Minnesota or other states. That could be interesting for me, and that could be another project for me later. So staying at home, try to make some pottery and some small object and set up work table at home. But because I don't have a studio space at home, it was really, really challenging. So most of pieces are unfired, just stay there. Then instead, because I cannot I wasn't able to make pottery or ceramic pieces. I just spent time making drawings, a lot of drawings every day. I try to make one every day, one a day, and explore the shapes and form, shapes and the relationship and compositions and colors. And I enjoyed a lot. Also, I try to expand the drawing to to different material. I introduced thread onto the paper. So sewing on paper and then learning the patchwork. It was first time for me to learn doing the patchwork, the needlework. Especially I liked the Korean traditional bojari technique and incorporating the crochet, made crochet cups and add crochet on the sewing fabric. And finally, I made those hangings, window hanging scrolls. I don't know what to say. I was really fascinated by this endless combination of squares. Also, I love that translucency of fabrics, which are hemp fabric, organic hemp fabric, and the rami. In Korea, we use those fabric for very special event and for the special season. So I fell in love with those fabrics. These hangings have been comforting me from the exhaustive lockdown and also allowing me to breathe from the fear of pandemic. So if I have a chance to install them with ceramic works someday, I really love to do it. And I brought these white scrolls to Minneapolis, and I want to see how they get together with other sculptures. And I had plenty of time at home. Always I made drawings and then made small objects, especially the 3D objects. Probably they will become an inspiration of next work for the clay works. And now I am working on boxes. As you see, probably you already noticed the boxes reminds you that hanging scrolls. Then I love the various composition of square forms, and because they represent the window, the specific architectural elements that allow me to look outside, because it is stay there in boundary of inside and outside, and I stand by that window and look outside and long for the normal life and hope to return to the normal life. So probably my project at the Northern Clay Center changed a little bit from United States map to a combination of boxes. Still, they are interlocking or they interact together and create something very emotional and something meaningful to people who feeling desperate, feeling depressed. So yeah, probably I'll make a bunch of them and see how they look with other architecture like the windows and also with my fabric hangings. Yeah, this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.